Hey, this is Pamela Riemenschneider. I'm the retail editor for Blue Book Services, and I have Tom Stenzel from the United Fresh Produce Association with me. Tom, you are one of the few people I've seen on Zoom lately not working in a home office.
Well, actually, Pamela, I have found I can social distance here at the office just as well. Our whole team went to telework 2 weeks ago. So everybody is in remote locations, and this happens to be my remote location.
Well, we were talking just a minute ago. It seems like so much has been crammed into the last 2 weeks, especially the last week. We've got a lot of things to talk about. What kind of advocacy and what kind of wins do you think we've had over the last 2 weeks?
Well, I'll tell you, Pamela, I mean, it's really incredible how our world has changed in just a 2-week, 3-week period of time here. Nothing the association's doing compares to what our industry members are doing out there in terms of keeping the food supply moving. It's just been remarkable interacting with folks throughout the supply chain. I will tell you that our association at the beginning embraced two priorities. The first being to keep that food supply chain moving. You think about it, almost an overnight shutdown of all food service in the country. And you had to shift that food through channels into all retail outlets. It's just been a remarkable job, huge. And I can fill you in on some of the things that we've been doing to try to help facilitate that. But then we also had a second priority, which was driving financial relief for the industry that had been devastated. So you kind of had these two pillars that we've had to be working on simultaneously.
And to keep food moving, this was something that has happened extremely fast. How have you guys helped to facilitate some of that?
You know, it's really amazing. I'll start at the grower level. One of the initial concerns was when the borders were shut down, it started blocking all of the foreign guest workers coming in under the H-2A program. So working with USDA, the State Department, the White House directly involved. Finally, 2 weeks later, we pretty much cleared that system out. So we've got accelerated visas for the foreign guest worker program. There's still work to be done because those workers who are here, whose contracts expire, have nowhere to go. There are no flights going back to their home, and actually we want to keep them here working. So you know, that'll be the next phase on H-2A. The other thing that, well, there's so many aspects to talk about, but getting the Department of Homeland Security to be very clear that the food industry is part of the essential public health infrastructure of the country. That was harder than you might have realized. Everybody thinks about medical personnel, but without farmers, without harvest workers, without distributors, without truck drivers, without people in grocery, we are not going to be able to feed America. So we've been doing a lot with the government to make sure that our ability to deliver food stayed open. And that's tough when you've got mandatory shutdowns, curfews. You know, I say that everything from we had to work to get the Port of Houston back open after they closed due to one longshoreman having the virus, to getting truck stops open. There were communities closing truck stops. There's nowhere for the truckers to eat anymore, or even to use the facilities. Yeah. So little things like that. And then I guess I'll come back to what you mentioned, the partnerships I see in the industry. For us working with the National Grocers Association, Food Marketing Institute, really trying to help retail across the country connect with food service that has capacity. So all of our food service distributors who had produce in their warehouse to get that channel moved over to retail, but also perishable logistics. So, you know, we've got food service distributors sitting with, you know, 200,000 square foot refrigerated facilities without any product in them. So using those for storage for retail. We've got truck fleets, hundreds of refrigerated trucks that used to deliver to restaurants that can now deliver to retail. So making those connections has also been a real key part of this.
Well, what's coming up? I know it's hard. I've been asked to predict retail demand, and that's nearly impossible to decide what consumers are going to stock up on next.
It is.
But what are your priorities?
I think as consumers, we went into the grocery store and we didn't know what to expect. Now that we see fresh produce is there every day, people are starting to become more comfortable with that idea. You don't have to buy, 200 of this or 100 of that. We're going to have fresh produce available to them every day.
We've got a lot more advocacy going forward as far as WIC and SNAP and nutrition and making sure that fresh produce gets a seat at the table. What are you guys prioritizing next?
Yeah, so let me mention two things. All of the federal feeding programs, the school meals, with schools being closed across the country, the school districts are having to find new ways to feed the kids. So they're setting up different distribution centers. There's a critical need for food banks right now to be getting foods and fresh produce. In a case like this, it's easy to revert back to just canned foods and staples like that. People need fresh produce for their health. We're one of the best immune fighting things you can eat. So we have to make sure that we're still getting the kids through those school feeding sites with fresh produce. So that's one of the key things we're working on. I guess the other thing I would mention, and if you said what's going to be a big advocacy push today and for a long time, it is the financial relief. The CARES Act that was just passed by the House this afternoon is gone to the president for his signature. We expect that at any minute. That's going to drive, well, it's $2 trillion back into the U.S. economy in general. But for the fruit and vegetable sector, there's $9.5 billion that's carved out to help our industry with the losses and impact of this. Now, that program didn't exist. Well, it doesn't exist until the bill is signed by the president. But now we got to organize it. How do you even track? One of the things I'm telling our members at every point in the supply chain is keep financial records today like you've never kept them before. Make sure you know exactly what your losses are, contracts that have been canceled, customers who aren't able to pay. Eventually, there is going to be a source of support for some of those non-payments and the losses we've suffered. But you're going to have good records. So that would be my first advice to the industry today.
Definitely, for sure. And we will keep track of that, and we should check in regularly. Like we've said, things are moving so fast every day. It's a new challenge and a new opportunity.
Yeah, Pamela, that would be great. You guys are doing a great job keeping the industry informed. So yeah, we'll be here. We had a conference call, or a Zoom call, I should say, with my executive committee this afternoon. All of our officers engaged. We're going to continue working. Telework is a new world for all of us, but for those out there on the front line who are growing the food and delivering and serving, selling the food in retail stores, they're the real heroes. So big thanks to all of them.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Tom. I really appreciate it, and we'll check in soon.
Super. Thanks, Pamela.